Hello, welcome to another Jim Clyber show. Today is September 8th, 2020. It's Tuesday. It's 1 p.m. here in the Eastern Daylight Time, I believe. That's what they call the summertime. And today I want to talk about a TV show that I've been watching. Not too much into the details of the show, but the overall concept of it and how it can bleed into regular life. So I just finished the TV show House of Cards, which, if you're not familiar with, it's one of the original TV shows that Netflix produced. It starred, actually, I don't know too many of the actors' names besides Kevin Spacey. And it was about politics. It was about DC. It was about the life in Congress and the life in the executive branch in the president's office. And it's called the House of Cards, which, if you're familiar with a House of Cards is when you stack up playing cards on top of each other and they get to be quite large. But the problem with houses of cards is that they can be quite fragile as well. And if you even just a slight breeze hits one of the cards, the whole thing can come tumbling down. And the more that I watched this show, the more that I started to get the feeling and also reinforce the belief that I had that a lot of politics is really about keeping secrets and the fear that one's secrets are going to get out. So in watching the show, there are many different occasions where a person had either done something illegal, something immoral or unethical, or something that they thought was immoral or unethical. So something that they felt ashamed of. And really didn't want those things to come out. So I can't remember specific examples in there, but it could be something like, anything from like killing someone to bribing someone to cheating on a spouse to being homosexual to being etc., etc. So killing someone's illegal, and so if that secret comes out, the person could go to prison. Bribery is illegal, but not as illegal as killing, so they may go to prison, but for not as long. Cheating on one's spouse is not illegal, but by many is considered immoral or unethical. And being gay or being homosexual is not, by a large swath of society, depending on your country, is not perceived as immoral or unethical, but could be something that drives a lot of shame in the individual, or fear in the individual if that secret gets out, because of maybe perceived ridicule or perceived loss of status, or who knows what, like just being perceived in a way that one doesn't not want to be perceived. And it seemed like most of the show revolves around this idea of telling someone, I know your secret, and if you don't do this, I'm going to tell everyone your secret. And when people start doing things that you don't like, leaking secrets to the media or somehow getting that secret out there and exposing the person. Basically, unwanted exposure. And I don't think this just applies to politics. I think this applies to most everything we do in life, especially as we get more and more public. As we become more and more of a public figure, it's harder and harder to keep these so-called secrets. And I think this is what scares many of us from going into the public life. So how many people would run for political office knowing that they have quote unquote skeletons in the closet? Fear that something that they did 10 years ago is going to come out, whether again it was illegal, immoral, or something that just makes them feel ashamed, or something that they're not proud of. Well, I'd argue that almost all of us have these things. And it seems like the antidote is to just be open about it and say, okay, this is who I am, and these are my cards. I am showing you my cards. Do what you will with them. But I can at least speak for myself, and I know how much I can fear that. I have a hard time opening up to individuals in front of me, let alone to a world who is listening or who may or may not be listening, and I don't even know. And so I think it just becomes more and more amplified as we look at it on a much larger audience. So if we fear, so say for example, I guess one of the most well-known examples of not something illegal is, somebody coming out of the closet and saying that they're that they're gay. Forgive me if I use the wrong terms. I don't know sometimes. I try to use the correct terms, but I don't know if it's homosexual or gay, or if it depends on the person. But so anyways, if someone were to come out of the closet as gay, and it's a hard enough conversation to have with the friends and family, to open up and say and admit that this is who I am. It's a hard enough conversation to have with ourselves, to be open and honest with ourselves, let alone the rest of the world. And so, yeah, I mean, this just reminds me of when I was working on iFeelio. It's an app I built to help me journal about my emotions and really open up to myself. And as I shared it with more and more people, I kept getting this feedback of, wow, it really forces you to be honest with yourself, doesn't it? And it can be a scary thing to sit there and really be honest with ourselves about what we want, what we've done, what we haven't done, how we feel, what we dream, and all these things. And so if it's hard enough for us to be open and honest with ourselves, it can sometimes be even harder to open up to other people. And it can be really hard to be open and honest with people who we don't even know sometimes. Sometimes it's easier as a stranger on a plane, I can just talk to the person next to me. But there's something inherent of, if I'm talking to the stranger next to me on the plane, it's just going to disappear. It's almost like an anonymous conversation, especially back in the day. I would never see that person again. They would never see me. And that story would basically turn into this anonymous person I met on the plane type of story. But nowadays, it doesn't have to. It's a lot easier for it to stay into the story of, oh, this person I met on the plane who is named Jim, who has this website. Oh, here, you can go look up his career and the stuff that he's done in the past and the things that he wants to do in the future and where he lives. And whoa, hold on. Now, being not a very public figure, it's still not that likely that won't happen. Now, but what if I hand her a business card, or I say, here's my email address, or here's my LinkedIn, or here's my Instagram? Well, now that person can find me, and then if I have my full name on there, they can find it. And very quickly, the puzzle could be pieced together. And a lot of the things that I think I'm hiding may actually come out. Because that's the irony in all of this, that we think we're hiding secrets, that we're holding things so dearly and so deeply inside that people will never know this or never see this. But sometimes it's written all over our face, or all over our website, or all over our social media profile. It may not be so explicit and so direct, but sometimes people can really piece together those details very quickly. Yuval Noah Harari talks about this, and I know I talk about him a lot, but I think he's really impacted me, especially in some of his talks. I've been a bit hesitant to read the books just because anytime I look at a book that is thicker than my arm, I kind of pause. Maybe I should get a thicker arm. But he talks about how in the future, or maybe the near future, or maybe now, that we humans are becoming more and more hackable, meaning that certain algorithms or certain people or corporations or certain computers outside of us will know us better than we know ourselves. This is the Googles or the Amazons being able to predict where we want to go, at which time, or what we want to buy, or what we want to, what type of answers we want when we put a search query into Google. You know, they're trying to predict our context. If we type in the word, what's an example? Oh, for example, Springfield. So, famous from the TV show The Simpsons. They were living in a town called Springfield. And I think one of the jokes of it being called Springfield is that many, many states in this country have a city named Springfield. And so it was hard to pinpoint, okay, in which state are they living? And so if I were to go search in Google and I search for Springfield, Google is trying to figure out which Springfield do I mean? Do I mean the one that's closest to me? Do I mean the one that's famous? And Google's trying to parse, trying to understand who I am and what I'm desiring in that moment. And so if Google gets to the point where it can do this quite well, then it can also try to convince me and persuade me into what I like and what I want. And so I think, although we think we're hiding a lot of stuff, we think we're being really secretive and private, we're leaking information all the time. We are just leaking all of these stories and all of these things. I even hesitated to say it right now. Like, I'm sitting here and I go like, oh, what city should I say? If I say the city where I live, people will know the city. But people can already figure out where I live. And it's hard, and it's something I've struggled with, and trying to be more open on the internet, is that I'm well aware that people could piece together so many of these facts. And so now even me talking about this, it's like, oh, well, where does he live? So I wanted to use the example of Troy, because I grew up in a city called Troy. And if I say Troy, is Google going to show me Troy, or is it going to show me Troy over in Greece? Or is it going to talk about the Trojan War, or is it going to talk about, what's it going to show? And I can sense in myself even that hesitancy to open up too much, knowing that it could be really scary. I don't know. It can be really scary. It can scare me a lot, knowing that so many other people know so much about me. And to feel so helpless in a way to this idea of being hacked. And maybe that's the thing with politics, is that in politics, opening up and showing more of our secrets means that more people know us very well. And the deeper that the more that people know us, the more that people can help us, but the more that people can also hurt us. The person who knows me really, really, really well can give me the best gifts I have ever imagined. Or frankly, gifts I had never even imagined would be possible. Things that I didn't even know that I wanted, that I knew that, that were just, upon seeing them, I go, wow, this is perfect. How did you know? Because I didn't know. At the same time, these very same people they know our soft spots. They can really hit us in points where we don't. Again, we didn't know we hurt that much in that spot. They can poke us, they can prod us in places that we didn't know were so vulnerable, so sensitive, so weak. And that's the scary part about being well known. well known with the public or well known with one single individual. That idea of falling in love and opening up and having someone know us so well, it can bring us so much joy, but it also can bring us so much pain, so much anger and frustration and confusion and helplessness and vulnerability and fear and smiles and gratitude and so many emotions. And not just to us, but to other people as well. And so that's being well known with one person, but being well known on a local, regional, or national, or even global level can just amplify all of those emotions for ourselves, but also for others as well. And maybe that's one of the hardest parts about being a public figure, is that people want to know us or want to know them. I say us because I imagine as I speak more and more on this, I'm going to become more and more public. And I think in a way, we are all public figures, whether we realize it or not, especially nowadays with the internet, with the public reach that we have. Any of us could be moments away from being a meme or being famous on Twitter or some of these things for good things or bad things, or for, for things that are good and bad, right? And I think it scares me to be so well known by so many people that I don't know well. That imbalance of intimacy, that I'm open and the other person is not opening up back, and that even if they are, once it gets to a certain point and there are more followers than there are me, once it gets above like 100 or so people, it's impossible. I mean, even at 100, it's quite hard for me to know 100 people very, very well. But imagine it gets from 100 to 1,000, you start growing up from there, and it's just the imbalance of intimacy can, at least I know for me, can really shake me up and really make me feel uncomfortable. I remember one time I was meeting with a girl that I had dated before, and this was like a year or two after we dated, and she was in town, and we went out, and I opened up to her and told her about how much I missed her and still cared about her, and I could feel how vulnerable I was. I could feel I was shaking, like I was really raw, and she wasn't. She just kind of sit there, and she was very confident and asking me a lot of questions and putting a lot of the attention on me. And at one point, it became too much. I couldn't. I felt so uncomfortable. And then I realized, it's because I'm sitting here really vulnerable and raw, and she's not. There's almost this emotional imbalance. And so I asked her a question, and earlier that day she had said something about she received a text message from someone, and it made her cry right before I saw her, and she had to clear that up. And so I asked her, I said, what was the text message about? What brought you to tears? And then she opened up and started telling me about what was going on with her. And I instantly felt that discomfort fade away. It was this idea of we were on similar pages. We had started to, I think as Caleb called it, to entrain. I think to entrain with each other, to basically sync with each other so that we were on the same beat. As a public figure with more eyes on us than our eyes are on them, it's almost inevitable, this imbalance of vulnerability, that or this imbalance of being known, of intimacy, that more people will look at us. Even an imbalance of attention, that more people are looking at us than we can look at them, and are knowing more about us than we could know about them. And in a way, this is could be a very powerless position. It can make many of us feel really powerless. But at the same time, how much does our vulnerability and openness make other people feel powerless or helpless? Like, at the same time, is it very, does it make us feel powerless and very powerful? I record a video like this. I'm just sitting here in my basement with the sump pump draining in the background, with my shaggy hair and my fluffy beard and my flannel. And yeah, I feel seen in a way. I feel really kind of vulnerable. And yet, what I'm saying could have a powerful impact on some people. It could resonate very deeply. They could be shocked that a guy would just sit in his basement and talk like this, that it's not pre-scripted, that it's not canned, that it's not overly edited. It's just a dude sitting here talking to the camera, pondering the state of life. I don't know. I think maybe that's the problem with it, is that, or not the problem, but the challenge is that opening up and being known and being seen can be a very powerful experience for not only us, but for other people, but can go in different directions very quickly. It can bring strong, powerful joy. And then in a second, it could flip to strong, powerful pain or anger or rage. Yeah. When I think about the times when I've been in love or I've been really, really close with somebody, romantically, it has been emotional. I don't say emotional where many people say emotional, they mean like lots of crying or lots of anger only. No. It's been the full spectrum. It's been bliss, from bliss to numbness to rage to tears of joy and pain and everything in between. And it can be really unpredictable at times. Is it going to go this direction or that direction? And I think going in, that's just having it with one person, and doing this on a more public scale, I think can be really, really, really powerful, which scares me. It's almost like driving a car, and driving a car that doesn't have much power, or like, riding a bicycle. The bicycle can't go that fast. And so, especially if it's a 1-speed bicycle, you can't really go that fast. But now take this bicycle and now you start going down a hill, and you go down a really big hill, and it's exhilarating and it's terrifying and it's fast. And at any moment you could like feel the wind on your face, and your cheeks are, and your ears are maybe flopping, or like this long hair is bouncing in the wind. And but at any moment you could hit a stone, and if you hit that stone, you fly to the side. If you're going down a hill that's on the side of the mountain, you could fly off the mountain. You could start tumbling down the cliff. But it's exhilarating. It's this idea of something that's very, very powerful, but because of the power, it has almost a high risk factor to it. That any slight deviation could throw us in a different direction, a direction that we didn't anticipate. And maybe that's just life, how life is, this paradox of things being very powerful and us, us having a lot of power, but also feeling powerless at the same time. And fearing the power and also fearing the powerlessness, and how we could switch between one and the other. Maybe there is more in common with quantum physics than we anticipate. I'm pretty sure in quantum physics they talk about how quarks can flip, or no, how the spin, I think it's the spin. So it's a spin of an electron or spin of a quark or something. I don't know. But this concept of like the spin can flip very quickly, that it's very fragile. So it's hard to maintain that quantum state for a very long time. So I know they talk about this in quantum computing, where they talk about qubits. And qubit is basically, I think it's one of those. It's maintaining electron. It's my guess. Maintaining no, it's not. I don't know. I don't know the actual thing, but it's maintaining it in a specific state, and that state can flip very quickly, and so it's very hard to maintain that fragile state. And one of the challenges they have in quantum computing is to maintain that state for as long as possible without it flipping into a different state. And I think that's also some of the challenge when it comes to being open and vulnerable and being powerful in any way, is that being really powerful can be very powerless in a split second. It can change, but then it can change back, and then it can change, and it can change back. And this almost vulnerability, this helplessness to how quickly life could change and what that means. I don't know. At least for me, I know that drives a lot of fear. And when we open up, we're not just opening up about ourselves, but we open up about the other people in our lives too. So if I tell a story about this house, it's also telling a story about my parents. And my parents may not want the world to know that story, because this is the house that my parents bought when I was growing up. Actually, this is the only house that I've known that my parents have ever lived in. And so me talking about this house is inherently talking about them, and who knows what they do or don't want the world to know from again, legality standpoint, from a morality standpoint, or just from kind of a personal pride and shame standpoint. It's really, really hard. And I think maybe it's just this paradox, this tricky part of life, that when I open up, I feel so good. I feel so free, but also so scared. I love when people know me really well, and I'm also nervous when people know me really well. I don't know in which direction they'll take it. I think this may be one of the hardest challenges we have as humans going forward, with so much communication, so much broadcasting to the world, so much publicity. We're all becoming public figures in a way, and people and algorithms and computers are starting to know us better than we know ourselves. And that can lead us to want to hide and to create fake images and to create fake stories to hide our secrets deeper and deeper. But in the end, they all pretty much come out anyways. And holding them in can really cause us a lot of pain. I remember reading a book called Opening Up by author James Pennebaker, and he says that, I think he said that even criminals who had committed crimes or even murder, when they opened up, they felt better. this release, this get the monkey off the back, or get something off my chest. All these different cliches we have for it, idioms rather. But yeah, I hope that we all start to open up a little bit more, no matter how terrifying it can be. Because I think we're more open than we think we are. And I think our nature is to want to be open, and trying to stop it is almost like trying to put a dam up in front of surging storm waters. It's hard. It's the water wants to push through the dam, and we can keep trying to hold back the water, but it's probably going to do us more damage than the release of the water will. Maybe not the best example, but I guess the thing is this: if I want to live in a world where people are more open and honest, then I have to be more open and honest myself. And so I have to ask myself, do I really want other people to be more open and honest with me? Do I really want it? Do I really want to know other people that well on such a deep level? And if I do, I should be willing to open up first. Hey, much easier said than done. On that note, I hope you all saw a little bit of me, got my humanity, got a sense for my humanity a little more. And I look forward to terrifyingly opening up in the future, despite how scared it makes me feel. Thank you.